Thanks for logging on to Wayne.com to watch Inside the Zone. As always, alongside Blake Sebring, the Komets beat writer for the News Sentinel, I'm Glenn Marini. And Blake, it's deja vu all over again.
It really is.
I mean, there's so many similarities between the way this series versus Cincinnati has started as opposed to the series between the Royals. Hopefully it's the same finish. But Komets take game one in a goal with 7 seconds left, just like Sean Siglowski did it. This time it was Christian Ouellette. And then kind of a blowout in game two.
Yeah, they played well enough to be competitive, and that was about it.
So what are the differences between the first two games of the last series and the first two games in this series that you noticed because you made the trip to Cincinnati?
Well, they didn't get to Rob Medor. He's a great goalie right now. He has an amazing glove hand. They keep trying to beat him high, and it's like, well, that ain't going to happen. That is just not going to work. He's that good. Although Matt Carter got him high on the backhand, but nobody could have stopped that one. But his glove hand was just amazing, and he really kept Cincinnati in the first game to make it even competitive at all.
One of the similarities is that the Komets outshot Cincinnati easily in game one. In game two, Cincinnati just started firing from everywhere. Started really doing that in the second period.
Yep.
But this is exactly what Reading did, is they got outshot in game one and then just started firing bullets in the next game.
Well, and they put the pressure on the Komets defense. We talked about that as going into the series about how that was going to be a key. Who puts the pressure on the other team's defense?
Meisner, the one thing you want to have when you're in the playoffs is a hot goal. If you had to pick one thing, you pick a hot goalie. Obviously, he was hot in game one, game two, not as much. Where is he right now? And you feel like mentally he's there, he's ready to rock and roll, just ready to get game three on?
Yeah, he's fine. There was, out of the four goals, one was an empty netter. There was really only one he might have won it back. The rest of them were just bang, bang. There was nothing anybody could have done. So he's, out of the 7 games so far, he's given up one goal that he might want back. That's pretty good. I'll take that. If you're rooting for the goalies, that's pretty darn good.
In talking to Gary Graham at practice before this series, one of his biggest concerns was Cincinnati's offense. They came in averaging right at 3 goals a game in the playoffs. Shala's obviously very good. Megan can score. He's got 6 goals, counting that empty netter that you said in the playoffs. So what do they do to neutralize a team that has such firepower offensively?
Go bang. You go bang them, because you're not going to outskate them. You can skate with them, but you can't outskate them, which means you got to go bang and wear them down a little bit. And they're not a physical team. This is not like Reading at all, where Reading just came out and was after the whistle, pushing, shoving. There's not a lot of that so far. For one thing, Cincinnati isn't as big as Reading was. That's not their style. They'd rather play fast. But the Komets need to be the one to instigate the physical play then.
One of the things looking into this series at the beginning that we thought might give them an advantage, and this happened a few years ago with the Rapid City Mike Vascovo situation where he completely knew exactly what they were doing and kind of relayed that to the Komets. Mike Embach is in a very similar situation, because here's a guy who played in Cincinnati for a season, got traded after a handful of games this year to Fort Wayne, sort of against his will, I think, at the beginning.
Oh, big time.
How does having a guy that knows exactly what they're doing, specifically I think on special teams, help the Komets going forward against Cincinnati?
I don't know that it's that so much as just the energy that Mike brings. Because the scouting is so good nowadays with all the video and stuff. You can tell immediately what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. But I do think Mike's passion is really a key point for the Komets. That he gets fired up, and he is fired up, and he's not letting up. And that needs to translate a little bit to everybody else.
And his goal was a power play goal in game one. So how important is the power play going forward for the Komets? Because it's something we talk about, special teams, huge in the playoffs.
And again, they did well against Cincinnati during the regular season on the power play. And, they're always big in the playoffs because it's always 1-goal games or 1 goal with an empty netter type thing. So those are always critical. The Komets made up for it in Reading by getting the 2 shorthanded goals. They didn't have the chance yet for this, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting. You got to keep Cincinnati off of the power play. The Komets were actually more disciplined than Cincinnati in the first couple games. The Cyclones had fewer power play chances than the Komets. The Komets just didn't cash. They get 2 power plays in the first period on Saturday night in game 2. They score 1. Who knows what happens?
When we're looking at this series at the beginning of it, you take a look at the numbers. The Komets 4-0 4-0 at Cincinnati. So really a split, just based off the numbers, not really that surprising. But that means the Komets are 1-1-2 against Cincinnati at the Coliseum. I know you've mentioned that Cincinnati is a very dangerous team on the road. Just talk a little bit about why they're so good on the road and what the numbers look like.
Well, they didn't lose 10 games all year on the road, which is astonishing. They were 24-9-2. And it's just, then they won all three games against Orlando in Florida. So you cannot expect coming home that say, the home crowd carry us. That's not how it works against these guys. These guys are very, very good. You think about it, Medora was called up a bunch of that too, and he's better right now. The Komets have to come out and initiate, and they have to be the one to force the action, force the tempo, force the physical play, force the forecheck more than anything.
That said, though, you have to feel pretty good about splitting with a team like Cincinnati that was kind of an upper echelon team as far as the Eastern Conference goes all season long, splitting with them and then saying, man, we've got a chance to clinch it at home. It didn't seem like they could do it against Reading, and yet they did.
Yeah, but do you want to count on that?
Well, no, you can't count
I don't think
on
you
it.
can count on anything right now because home ice in the playoffs is unlike any other. It's not like basketball. It's not like, it's more like baseball where the road team is about 50-50. And it was very much the road team in the first round of the ECHL playoffs. So except for the Komets. I don't know that you want to keep counting on that. You earn that, but I wouldn't rely on that that's going to win it for you.
Matt Carter getting a goal in Game 2, what does that mean to the Komets? Because, he's a guy we haven't seen a whole lot from the last month.
Yeah, but it was a play where he came out of the penalty box and basically got around the defense and then scored on the backhand. But he's got to do more than that, too. He can't just be the shooter. He can't just be the finisher. He's got to be involved with the defense and the physical play, too.
You wrote an article about the big line for the Komets being frustrated. Marino obviously led the ECHL, was in the MVP voting, I think third. Put up some big numbers in the regular season, -5 in the playoffs. And it's not just him. What does that line have to do to get going? And how dangerous can the Komets be if those big guys get going?
I said before the series, I thought them and Jace Coyle were going to be big factors in this series. And I still believe that. I mean, they're not playing poorly. By their standards, it's poor, okay? But by everybody else's standards, it's okay. It's nothing special. Komets need them to be special. They really do. They look to them to carry the offense, and when they do, it takes pressure off everybody else. You don't worry about the power play then because they're scoring 5-on-5, and they're getting scored on 5-on-5.
What do they need to change?
They got to be more physical. They really do. They really do. They were not winning the battles along the boards or the battles for the puck or behind the net. They just weren't. It just wasn't working. So they need to be more committed that way.
Going into Game 3, what are you looking forward to see at the beginning? Because they're going to play 3 games here.
Yeah.
That's just the numbers, the way they break down. But what do you need to see in Game 1 to make this a successful 3-game homestand, essentially?
I want to see what those guys do right off the bat. I start them in Thursday night, and I say, go get them, boys, and see what they do, because they're going to set the tone for the whole thing. And if it doesn't work and if it doesn't change, I make a line change right there. I might even shift things up and put Schrocky up front, possibly, because he'll come with energy and hitting and speed, and he can match those guys speed wise. So I might even do that. I mean, you cannot wait around on this. If they're seeing the same things after the first period Thursday night out of those guys that is just not clicking, I might make a change right there.
But still, you got to feel pretty good splitting at Cincinnati. You're shaking your head.
I'm not. I'm not.
If you say at the beginning you're going to be in the second round against Cincinnati,
I know.
Splitting the first 2 games with 3 at home, you'd be like, I'd take that in a heartbeat, wouldn't you?
Well, who'd you spend your money on for the Derby?
I don't spend money on the Derby because I know
I don't spend money on stuff that should happen.
Very good.
It didn't happen. It didn't happen Saturday night. So now they gave them a game. They need to make it happen. They need to earn it again. They need to get back on track.
And that would start, hopefully, Thursday night here at the Coliseum.
And I think they will, too. I mean, I think there was enough guys who were really ticked off after the game Saturday night, and they were all grousing, and I don't blame them a bit. I mean, it's not exactly fun for Brandon Marito, Chris Auger, and Scott Fleming to be asked, what do you guys got to do to get going? You know, that's never happened this year. I have a feeling it's going to happen Thursday.
All right, it should be very interesting. We'll have complete coverage on Thursday night. Blake will have you covered every day of the week, not only in the News Sentinel, but also on his blog, Tailing the Komets. But for this week's edition of Inside the Zone, I'm Glenn, he's Blake, and we'll see you next Monday.